Basically, we are the Campus News. We're putting this on for the students to come and talk to some key members of the school, ask them questions about the budget, anything pertaining to the budget, basically. This is you can either make a statement or ask a question. This is for you guys to get the information you need or the information you want, and we cut out the middleman. We got the people here. We have Brent Calvin, the superintendent and president, Francis, the VP of Student Services, and Doug Brinkley, the VP of Administrative Services. And just some guidelines real quick. Keep the questions brief and to the point. No more than one question with one follow-up. Keep questions or comment in the realm of class cuts or class availability. No rebuttal. Administration will have 2 to 3 minutes to respond to questions or comments, and 2 administrators maximum will address each question or comment. All right, those are just the basic rules. We're trying to keep this as professional as possible, so no vulgarity or anything like that. Show respect, and you'll get respect back. So this is open up to any student who would like to say anything to these administrators and people. So we're going to go ahead and let this start. Whoever wants to step to the mic first, the floor is yours.
Manuel. How's it going? Can we ask a question to the newspaper? All right, so we have class cuts and all that stuff, right? Summer school being canceled. One question: Where are we going to get funds to fund all this? Or where do you guys see or where do you think you get the money to get these classes back
For summer school?
The question was, where's the money going to come from to add classes back? But just to put this in context, this fall we had 1,203 classes scheduled for the fall, and we have canceled 50 of those. We tried to limit those cuts to classes that either didn't have a staff person, we couldn't find a staff person, or that maybe were under or low enrolled. In some cases we were able to do that. In other cases we canceled classes that had 20 or 25 students in there, and certainly that wasn't our initial intention, but we needed to find some way to cut down on our expenses, because the fact of the matter is our state community college system has lost a ton of money from the state in the last 2 years. In fact, this year alone, COS has about a $40 or $42 million budget. We've lost about $4.5 million of that, just gone. And that has to be made up somewhere. 50 classes is not going to do it. We've used a number of different ways, including one-time monies or reserves to get our way through this year. We have a plan for next year that involves similar strategies, but it's not a long-term strategy, and so that's where Manuel's question really comes into play. What's going to turn this around for the community college system, and really the entire higher ed system? Because it's not just the community college system in our 112 colleges, it's all the CSUs, all the UCs. I think you've probably read CSU is closing their doors on a lot of our transfer students, and they're just not taking students. So what's going to change that? I think the economy coming back, obviously. Anytime that the state is the economy's coming back and tax dollars are pouring into the state, we get a pretty significant piece of that in education, higher education as well. And that trickles down to us at the community college level, and at that point, I think they'll start funding our system at a level that we're used to, and we'll be able to reinstate those classes. Same thing with CSU and UC. I don't think they'll close their doors forever. I just think right now they don't have the funds to operate business as normal. So I think it's going to take the economy snapping back, or at least our state legislators deciding that they need to invest in higher ed instead of disinvesting, which is what they've been doing for the last couple of years. Great question. Sure, he's got a follow-up.
Follow-up. All right. I didn't make it a little clear. I meant that question for the newspaper committee or whoever's doing it.
So where do we think the money is?
Yeah, where do you guys expect the money to come out of? Because I mean, the budget cuts are big.
Yeah. Well, we have a pretty good grasp on the budget since we're on the campus, and we know more about the money than most people, and we know that it's going to take a better more money, more cash flow in the economy to trickle down to us. We know that the money's not there, they're just not using it. It's not that, it's just, we're just waiting for something to happen, either good ideas from people or something to go to the budget meetings and listen to them. It's just a matter of waiting for someone with a good idea or waiting for the economy to get back in order. All right, go ahead.
I have a question. My name is Joseph Peacock. I'm on the campus actually, but I wanted to ask about the French classes. I heard that they were canceled, but not cut out if you get a new teacher. Is that correct, or would you bring back French classes?
We lost the teacher, and I think that was the reason for canceling the classes. Now, if that division so chooses to cancel that for the year, use that as one of their cuts, then that is their prerogative. Every division has to cut a handful of classes. Again, we've got about 11 or 12 divisions, 50 classes, and so every division has a certain amount of classes that they are to cut for the year, or for that semester, excuse me. And so in that case, losing the French instructor for those 2 classes, I think made it convenient to drop those classes. Now, if in fact they decide to cut something else and reinstate those with a new teacher, that's certainly their prerogative. Good question, Joseph. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go up.
No, he's coming.
What can students do to prevent these cuts?
Excuse me?
What could the students do to prevent these cuts?
The question was, what could the students do to prevent these cuts? And there's not a lot for the students to do. Frankly, there's not a whole lot for us as a district to do when in the face of $4.5 million in budget cuts from the state. Obviously, if you're working a job and you get that high of a percentage of your take-home pay just taken away from you, something's going to have to change in your life. Maybe you've got to sell your car, or maybe you don't go to the movies as often, or something like that. Well, when we lose $4.5 million in a year, that's the equivalent of, depending on how much each class is costing us, that's the equivalent of 700 to 900 classes. So if we were to take the full cut that we've realized this year, $4.5 million, if we were to take that entirely out in classes, it would be, again, 700, 800, 900 classes. So we've chosen to cancel 50. We've tried to surgically do it with the least impact on students. Again, we still have a remaining 1,150 classes. So we've tried to do it surgically, and we're not approaching what the cuts are that we've got from the state. So in terms of what the students can do, you all have legislators that represent this area, and I would say an email to them goes a long way to say, hey, my name is X, and these are my career dreams, and the state government de-investing in higher education is hurting my plans to do that. I would like to see you make higher education, and specifically the community college, a higher priority. So it doesn't sound like you have that much power, but frankly, you do. 1 or 2 emails doesn't do much, but several 100,000, which is, our entire system is made up of almost 2.5 million students. It's dropped considerably in the last couple of years for this reason alone, but it's still a huge system. And I think if all the students were to tell their legislators, hey, take it from somewhere else. If the tax revenue is not there for the state, take it from somewhere else, but we don't want to see you disinvest in higher education. Good question. Yes, ma'am. You have a hat. You're lucky. You're keeping that. I need a hat like that. It's on.
Okay, good. I just got in from Hanford right now, and my question to either one of you two is this, regarding summer school. I'm enrolled in Porterville right now. I have to go all the way to Porterville. My understanding that since Visalia is so big, COS is so big, I shouldn't have to. From what I understand, it's going to cost about $100,000 for summer school to be on over here at COS. Okay, my understanding is that there's so many million in this fund. We're going to be getting 4 million in July, 4 million in October. I didn't catch anything that you guys were talking about before I got here. But if it's going to cost $100,000 to have summer school over here at COS, I have to go all the way to Porterville, right? Something's wrong here. Something is wrong here. And I keep hearing about, you know, money's not coming here, money's not coming there, but yet we have these funds that are going to be coming in. Why do I have to go all the way to Porterville when it makes more sense to have COS summer school over here, since most of the people live in this area, either Porterville or have to go over there to Reedley or to Lemoore? Here's the main campus. A lot of the people live around here. Why do I have to go all the way to Porterville? 100,000?
Very good question.
100,000?
Very good question. Thank you. You can stay there if you want to. You have one follow-up if you want to. But first of all, 100,000. I wish. I wish. We pass the hat around the community. We do it. Summer school costs us in the neighborhood of 1.2 to 1.3 million dollars. So it's not simply that easy. And on top of that, the state doesn't pay us over our what we call our cap threshold. So we could spend $1.3 million and nothing would come back from the state in terms of funding for that. Last year we served 10,600 full-time equivalent students, and that was without summer school for 2011. So 10,600 full-time equivalent students is what we generated. The state paid us for 8,700. We got some math majors in here. What's the difference there? How many FTS went unfunded? 1,900 full-time equivalent students went unfunded last year. If they would have paid us for that, that's close to $9 million. Our problems would be solved. They did not pay us for that. In fact, this year we won't get paid for that. Even that paltry 8,700, they're going to dip us down to 8,200. That's the challenge we have. Now, in terms of money coming in this summer, and I'm glad you asked that one. I really am. In the old days, if the state was going to pay us $30 million for the year, and that's about what the state ends up sending us, because the first $2 million of our $40 million budget, the first $2 million comes from fees here at the campus. You pay, it was $36 per unit, it's going up to $46 per unit. The state sets that. That money stays here in our cashier's office. It's generally about $2 million for the year. In addition, our property taxes, when they come in late in the calendar year, December, January, the county holds that and they send it over to us, and that's probably $8 million. That $10 million goes towards our revenue limit from the state, which is about $40 million. So the state, at that point, needs to send us $30 million. Everybody with me so far? I don't see one shaking head. Did I lose everybody? Did I need to back up? So $30 million the state's going to send us for the year, correct? In the old days, they would send us $2.5 million a month. If it was 30 divided by 12, they'd send us even payments throughout the year. I wish it was still that way. They do not. If you read the paper, one of the strategies the state employs is to defer a lot of our money, correct? They just push it out. They'll give us $1 million or $2 million here, $1 million or $2 million there, and they take a big part of that $30 million. In fact, this year it'll be $10 million. $10 million they're not going to pay us this year. They're going to pay us in August or September. So my guy Manuel, if your job decided to take a third of your paycheck and postpone it several months, you'd be hurting, wouldn't you? What would you have to do to get by? Cut. But is it really realistic to cut out a third of your life? Is it realistic for us to think we're going to cut away a third of our costs? No. We have to borrow. That's what it is. We borrow from our line of credit. We have what's called a tax revenue anticipation note, a trans. We borrow from our line of credit and our trans virtually all spring because we don't have that $10 million to make payroll, to keep the lights on, to do everything that we do. We don't have the cash because the state is holding on to it, deferring it into next fiscal year so they can balance this year's budget. Are we clear? So when you hear that we have cash coming in this summer, man, that's exactly what it is. We will get about $10 million in August or September, and it seems like a big windfall. Let's all have a party. The challenge is, by that time, we're gonna owe $9–10 million on our lines of credit that we have to get paid back. What makes matters worse is that money doesn't come free. We've got to pay interest on all that money that we borrow, and the state does not reimburse us for that. So it really puts us in a tough situation. And so your first question was about summer school, and again, bottom line is the state is just not paying us for enough students to justify it, even though for several years we did. We generated a lot more full-time equivalent students than we were getting paid for. We were happy to do it, but this year, with a $4.5 million cut, we can really only afford to educate the students that we're paid for. And that's a shame, but that's the reality of the situation.
Right now, as we speak, how much is in the reserve fund?
The reserve fund, the general fund reserve, is about $2.5 to $2.8 million. That's about what we're required. That's about what we're required by the state to keep. That's our general fund reserve. We have several what we call board restricted reserves. And before we went bankrupt, we'd have to burn through these. Almost like, before you froze to death, you disassemble your kitchen table and you burn it, right? To stay warm. And so we have several what we call board restricted reserves. One of them is we call our farm special reserve. When land was sold on Linwood and Walnut for LD Monte High School, for those houses, the district put that money in what we call a farm special reserve. It is to fund farm or ag related projects, and it's also helping in the transition to the Tulare farm as well. And that money sat in there for decades, and it's being used according to its purpose. We also have a reserve that we call banked leave. Whenever an instructor works overtime, works an extra class in a semester, contractually they have the option not to get paid for that and to bank it and maybe take it 2 or 3 semesters later. And yet we have to account for that, and so we put it in what we call the banked leave reserve. The student ASB has a small reserve. Our co-curricular our sports training teams and our newspaper and different people get travel funds out of, that's in a reserve. It's 50 or 100,000 or something like that. But in terms of our general fund reserve, the money that's available to us, I suppose, is about $2.5 to $3 million, and it represents about 5 or 6%, which is the state statute amount that we're supposed to keep. So what they do is they want you to keep that, and before you go bankrupt, they want you to spend that. That's like your last year. It's like burning your kitchen table to stay warm.
Do you agree with that? With that amount, paper?
Excuse me?
Do you agree with that amount, what he's saying? Do you know that?
Yes.
For sure?
Man, you can pull up on our website and search for the 2011-2012 budget book, and it's about a 40-page document, and it has our entire budget for this year, and probably last year as well, just so you can see the difference. What was cut? You can see every single reserve account. We also have what we call an irrevocable trust. Who's heard of the city of Los Angeles or the city of Vallejo or the city of Stockton teetering on bankruptcy recently? Has anybody read those stories? We got one? Yeah, Kathy has. Good. We've got at least 3, 4, 5 cities in the state that are close to bankruptcy. The issue is retiree benefits. They've made certain promises and obligations to their retirees that they'll continue paying primarily health benefits either for life or until they turn 62 or 65. And as you all know, health coverage has done nothing but just go through the roof in the last decade. And so these promises that were made years and years ago are coming back to haunt a lot of cities, to the point where several years ago, the federal government and our state government has asked public agencies that have these kinds of contracts and promises out there, they've asked them to start socking away money when they can to cover their retiree benefits in lean years, like this year. And so, probably 5-6 years ago, we got about $3 million in one-time money from the state. It wasn't part of our general budget, it wasn't part of our operational budget. Money was good at the state, and they sent us $3 million. And so we put it in a Union Bank account, and it's an irrevocable trust. The only thing it can be used for is retiree benefits. And some people think, and it's grown over time to about $4.6 million. Some people think that's not helping the college. I'm here to tell you, that is really helping the college right now, because we've got about $1.3 million per year in retiree benefits that we have to pay. Have to pay. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have to pay that. And in a lean year like this, when we've been cut about 3 times that much from the state, it was very, very nice to have the ability to pay that 1.3 in retiree benefits out of what we call our OPED, or other post-employment benefit irrevocable trust. Imagine if I was standing here today trying to make cuts of $1.3 million in order to pay retiree benefits. We're talking about 50 classes. We're talking about a couple $100,000. Imagine if it was 1.3, and that's what it would. If we didn't have that account to pay for the retiree benefits, which have to be paid, we'd be talking about a much, much dire situation. So thanks for your question.
Okay. Related to her question, where she said she's going to have to take classes over at Porterville, I tried to get into Reedley for summer school, and I'm going to have to take it during the fall semester, take some classes over there during the fall semester. Because of the cuts to summer school and the classes, and the students are having to go to different schools and take the classes there, we're likely going through similar situations to what we're going through here. So, doesn't this not create a bigger problem, or because students from other colleges are coming in and taking classes for the students that are there that they should be taking? Isn't this not just creating a larger problem where there's less classes being available everywhere, and it's just messing with our entire community college system?
So the entire higher ed system. You can also throw in the fact that Fresno State, Cal Poly, Long Beach State, Cal State Fullerton, they are not taking nearly as many students statewide as they once did. Where do those students go? Right here. The economy is also in the tank right now. People are unemployed or underemployed. They decide they need a career change. Where do they go? Our system. It's a perfect storm against our system. You're absolutely right, though. You're absolutely right. It creates more chaos. And I'll give you some stories. Hartnell College announced this week that they've got 30% of their fall and spring offerings on the chopping blocks. That's in Salinas. Very similar demographics to us, very similar size. They've got 30% of their classes on the chopping blocks, and that's after several years worth of cutting as well, but 30% for next year. City College of San Francisco announced in February, you can get this, they were canceling, I think, 73 classes from this semester. They had to be late start classes. I think they started late February, early March. But can you imagine signing up for your classes, knowing you have a few late start classes, and you're 2 weeks before they're supposed to start, your college cancels them? I mean, you're out of luck for financial aid and everything else. That's what happened at City College of San Francisco for the same reasons. So your point's well taken, and I'm not going to sit up here and try to claim that our system is in good shape. We've got 112 community college districts right now, and the only 2 that I suspect are doing okay are the 2 that don't rely on the state because all their property taxes locally cover all their costs, and that is Marin up in Northern California, wine country, very, very affluent place, and then South Orange County, again, very affluent place. They're what we call basic aid districts, where their property taxes cover their entire revenue limit, so they are not at the mercy of these kinds of state cuts that the rest of us, the other 110 colleges, are experiencing.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that consequence.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you for waiting patiently.
Yeah.
You're burning up, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I just have a two-part question. How many administrators do we have, and what is their combined salary, general and classified?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head. We have probably 28 administrators, and I would venture to guess that they all make between $75,000, and this year I'm the highest paid administrator for another 6 weeks at $170,000. Normally our administrative salaries, with the exception of superintendent president, ranges between about 75 and maybe 135, something in that
So we're
magnitude.
talking over $3 million?
Yes. Oh yeah. It's absolutely. It's a big part of our college, and I think, to be fair, I think you should probably also dig in and look what all salaries on our campus range from, because it's not just administrators. I mean, everybody has a cost, and I think that as a group, we are all well paid, and our entire system's well paid. And so at some point, I think in the future, if things continue to go the way they're going, I think everybody on this campus that works here is going to have to consider making concessions, and that's certainly part of what I think we'll all, as a campus community, end up talking about.
If it was said that summer school would cost around $100,000 and the average administrator makes about $100,000, did you ever consider maybe just cutting one administrator?
Well, did you, maybe you didn't hear my follow-up? Because summer school doesn't cost $100,000. If it did cost $100,000, we would never have suspended it. It costs about a $1.2 to $1.3 million. So if your question is, would we consider laying off 10 administrators or 10 employees, period, to fund summer school, which the state won't pay us for? I would have to say no. As difficult as it is to not offer summer school, it's more difficult to try to operate a college without personnel to work with students on financial aid, or work with tutors, or run our various student service programs like EOP&S, and the First Year Experience Program, and MESA, and TRIO. So if I had to say, do you want to get rid of all those things? Get rid of those administrators so those things go away, so we can offer summer school, even though the state's not going to pay us for it. As difficult as it is, and as much as I have a heart for offering summer school, I'd love to bring it back. I just can't justify it as long as the state won't pay us for it. But thank you.
Have we cut any administrators since the budget crisis?
Yes, we have.
Is it true that we're adding a new administrator?
Well, we're not adding a new administrator, no. If when somebody leaves, just like with faculty or classified staff, when somebody leaves and that function still needs to be done, I'm sure you're referring to our VP of Instruction, Mr. Duncan Graham, who can't be with us today. He got a job at College of Alameda in Northern California, and you're leaving. And he is running our accreditation. So, and that's a pretty important role. If we don't pass our accreditation in the fall, do you know what happens? The classes you're taking would not transfer. So it's pretty important. And Duncan has run our accreditation, and the Vice President of Instruction is an incredibly important position. So what we've advertised is, because it's too late in the year to try to bring someone on full-time permanently in his place, we've advertised for an interim Vice President to take his place. That job will run through the end of this calendar year, through the end of December, and then as of January 1, somewhere in that process, we'll have done a permanent search for a permanent Vice President to take over for that interim. But thank you for your 3 or 4 questions. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm a taxpayer in this district, and I also have sent 2 children to this school, both of whom have very successful lives. Both went to university and got advanced degrees. I think from what I've heard here today and from what I can see the people that are here sitting here, I'd like to tell you that my taxes, I really want to see go for your education. And I'm sorry to see what you people have to go through this year. I remember I went to school 40 years ago. That's how old I am. And I spent $96 a year for my education. $96 a year. And that was at a state college. I won't tell you which one it was, but I can tell you I learned 3 things: reading, writing, and revolution. And I have a question for the leaders here. The thing that has incensed me most about what's going on in the state with all of the different state colleges and schools like COS and like that is the constant increase in the salaries that the presidents and some of the other leaders of those colleges have been granted over the last few years. So my question to you gentlemen and lady is very simple. You know that these people are facing a problem with getting their education. You know there's shortages. And I can tell you I got some ideas as to where we can get some money. I think we should eliminate a lot of the prison guards. Hey, I've been in just about every state prison. The job that I used to have was interviewing convicts. And I can tell you that they're a very wasteful place of humanity. Those are places that we can get some money. Don't pay the prison guards quite as much. Not that I don't say that they have a fantastic, it's a very difficult job. Anyhow, that's not my point. My point is, if the people that are the presidents and the administrators and like that are really sincere about helping you people out, my question is, what percentage of your salary are you willing to donate to the cause?
That's right.
And I've got one other thing to say too, and that is that you were just told that you don't have any way of expressing yourselves. Well, you do.
Yep.
Right now. And the way, yes, you're doing it properly right now. Okay, I'm going to admit it. I'm a member of Occupy Visalia. And me and a few other people, not very many of us, we get out there and we harass the banks. Well,
Vote for Ron Paul then.
my son is a delegate for Ron Paul. He was also a delegate for Dennis Kucinich, the Democratic National.
Okay. We'll try to keep this on subject for 1 second. Let him answer the question first.
Thank you. I think he had a question. That was a question, right? I have said all along, I think eventually that everybody that works at the college, not just leadership, I think everybody at the college should seriously consider a 5 to 10% pay cut to equal the cut that we're getting from the state. That's sometimes it's easier said than done, because I think, as you're well aware, we have collective bargaining agreements, and that just can't happen. But I think a lot of people recognize that that's where things are heading, because you really can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, and when the state shorts us by $4.5 million, that's what it's going to come to. So, great question. I appreciate it, and happy occupying.
My last comment is, you can do it if you vote with your feet. You can do it if you tell the people in power what you want and that you're not going to vote for them unless they vote in your way. Yes. Use the power to vote. Yes. Don't be zombies.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is David. My major is horticulture, and somebody earlier said, "What can the students do?" It's not just what we can do. It's what the gentleman just said. What can you guys do? On today's paper, Visalia Times, superintendent from Visalia School District just got another raise. Average salary of a superintendent in California is $200,000. That's what he's referring to. There is a lot of interest groups and elected officials that are just moving money back and forth. So there's definitely money. We are the ones that are feeling the effect when these cuts happen. We are the ones that are losing out. So there's definitely a solution to this problem. The question is, again, what can we do? I would suggest that every person here that can vote write to the elected officials, our state elected officials, starting with Connie Conway. Write to them, email them, Facebook, whatever the media is, do it and pass the word around. But again, I believe in salary cuts because some are getting richer and some are getting poorer. My question is, why didn't we have this event in the gym instead of out here in the sun?
Hey, that is one thing, David, that I cannot be blamed for. I asked these guys, I begged, I said, how about the theater or the lecture hall? I'm going to be out here sweating my... Well, I digress. Go ahead, who's got another question?
All right. I wanted to ask is what more budget cuts are you guys planning on doing as far as surgical?
We've made the cuts we're making for fall. They're done. They're done. Because I'm assuming we're not going to get hit by the state. I'm assuming that we're a month away or 6 weeks away from the end of the fiscal year. I'm assuming they're not going to hit us with anything else. So we're done for the fall.
Okay, and those that it has affected as far as your course major, what are you guys going to do to help them with that?
Well, again, out of 1,203 classes, we cut 50 or 52, many of which had no students at all. In fact, we cut, I think we cut 9 yesterday with no students at all registered in them. For the students that do find themselves cut out of a class that they absolutely have to have in fall, I would say that you talk with your counselor or you talk with really anybody in administration to get some help. There are ways. If you're set to transfer somewhere and you need one class, it's got to be in the fall, and we're not offering it, then generally speaking, we may be able to substitute a similar class in for that. I'm sure you've all seen that process done. And if that's not the case, and there's other sections of a class, if you need a history class and there's 20 sections and they're all full, I happen to know that several of the history instructors, if you told them, I need one class to get out of here in the fall, will you add me to your class? I am all but sure that several of our history instructors would do that.
Okay, before the next question, we're taking questions online, and I'm going to go ahead and read one off to you.
Hey, the people online aren't standing. The people online aren't standing in the sun.
He's sweating. I have a question. My gosh, you can wait.
It's online. People are going to kill.
I want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious. To me, it seems very calculated and kind of deceptive that you guys cut the classes in the summertime. Because if you guys cut it now, then you guys would have a bunch of angry students who can go and voice their opinions. But if you do it during the summer and we get an email, the majority of us aren't going to really see. Well, a lot of people aren't going to be checking their email. We don't know when. And
I agree. That's why the cuts are already made. The cuts were made.
So but it says in the summertime.
Oh, the cuts have been made.
When? So then why are people still worried about their classes being cut?
Are the cuts showing up online?
When?
They've been cut in the last 2 weeks. They've been cut. 50 classes, 53 out of 1,200. So you will not be getting an email.
I thought it was 8%, which equaled over 100 classes.
What we try to do is find 8% to cut. But again, we had criteria in terms of no instructor, or low or under enrolled, or classes that had plenty of other alternatives. And so using that criteria, we only can come up with 53, and we're satisfied with that for the fall.
So
you're not going to get an email this summer.
No more cuts.
No, you're not going to get an email this summer. Thank you. Get out of the sun.
All right.
Yes. Here's one of my favorites.
Okay. First of all, I just wanted to point out that when I go through my 10 years or whatever of school, get my doctorate, and I'm looking for a job,
come back and take mine.
I don't want to only make the $20,000 a year that I was making as a sales associate. So I just want to say that so that we can kind of try to be fair to our administrators. They've got student loans. They have student loans that they have to pay. They've got responsibilities, and they went through all this schooling, and they do deserve to make a decent amount of money. I mean, that's what we're trying to do too, a lot of us.
Thank you. So do I still owe you a Coke afterwards?
We need some aloe vera. I'm getting sunburned. But I also wanted to make sure that it was known. I have been in contact with the state legislature. I've been checking the budget fact check. I want people to know this is not just COS, this is statewide. Fresno State has cut their new enrollment until they're estimating 2015. This is not just COS. People need to contact our state legislature. And it's my understanding from the governor, Connie Conway, and the budget fact check for the state that the governor's new budget proposes an increase in income tax to people who make over $250,000 a year and a 0.5 cent increase to sales tax. If that goes through, if we vote that through in November, there will not be further cuts to education. If we do not vote that through, there is a future higher education $1.4 billion cut statewide upcoming, and a further $300 million upcoming that they're going to put down in December. So we need to vote for them to get some revenue so that they stop cutting our education.
Thank you for that. And just you threw out some billion-dollar numbers, and that doesn't always translate. If the governor's tax measure does not pass in November, COS will take a 5.6% pay cut, or not pay cut, but budget cut, which equals about $2.1 million to us. The $4.6 million that we've received this year, about $3.3 million of that is ongoing, like never coming back. We get it next year. So next year, we've still got the 3.3, and if the November cuts happen, we're talking about 2.1. So next year would actually be worse than this year, although I can't imagine that. Sure.
Okay, one second. The question online is, do students who add and drop classes just for financial aid, does it affect the budget?
That's a good question. The question is when people game the system, when they add a class and stay in it just long enough to get financial aid, and then they're gone. We all know them, right? We do. We know them. And our system has prided itself for years and years and years on being everything to everybody. We don't have, we're open access. We don't have a whole lot of criteria. So we do get our share of students that are not here to actually receive an education. They're here to hang out, draw some financial aid money, and then they're gone. So the question is, does that affect our budget? And in terms of our budget cuts, what we're working with, I have to say no. But in the larger scheme of things, it affects it adversely a great deal, because let's face it, you have a limited number of seats on any college campus. I said earlier we have 1,200 classes we're offering, and if we say there's 40 seats in every class, we're talking about just under 50,000 seats. Well, for every student that's occupying one of those seats, just to spend a few weeks until they get their financial aid check, for that student, he or she is denying a legitimate student the opportunity to be in that class, which keeps those legitimate students here a lot longer. And that's a shame. And so that does have an ultimate effect on our budget, and it's really not fair to the students that are really here for an education. And there's some things that we can do about that. First of all, I know a lot of you have probably heard about the Student Success Task Force. That wasn't our doing. That's been done through a statewide coalition. And really, it's a series of recommendations designed to make sure that if you're occupying a seat in a community college setting, you're serious about being there. You're serious about succeeding, and you're gonna take steps to make sure you're successful. I also locally I want to commend our Faculty Academic Senate under the leadership of Michelle Hester-Reyes, and the subcommittee, Josh Moeller and his group, that came up with our new priority registration system, because we've taken steps to, again, try to curtail some of those types of games that go on. And at one point, basically, you got to sign up for your classes on what basis? Well, you had a ton of units, first of all. And if me and you both had 50 units, and your last name started with A and mine was Z, you'd go first. We've changed that, and when we do take into account the number of units that you have, just to respect the fact that people that have been here for a while need to have their classes and get out, only to a point. If you have 110 units, you're not going to get as high of a point value towards your, what we're calling like kind of a credit score. You're not going to get quite as high a score if you have 110 units as if you have between, I think it's 40 and 80. We really put a value on the students that have been here and are trying to get out, A. We put a value on students that take the time to go and get a student ed plan. We put a value on the students that go through an orientation. And most of all, we put a significant value on how well you've done in your class. If you're taking classes and just withdrawing, if you're taking classes and you're flunking them, if you're taking classes and you're pulling D's, you're not going to get the same kind of points towards your credit score, your priority registration score, as you would if you're getting C's, and certainly not B's and A's. So my advice to you as students, if you want to get the classes you want, get an orientation, have a student ed plan, take the classes you really need to get out, and do well in them. And you will not have a problem. And so a lot of what our academic senate has been able to do under Michelle and Josh's leadership is devise a priority registration system that really syncs up well with the statewide Student Success Task Force. And you got a question, right?
Yeah, I have a question. Let's suss this out, because the problem that we have financially in the state, we have the same problem nationwide. And there's been a real big clamor for austerity in the country. Now, some people are suggesting cuts to things like Pell Grants. What will that do to the budget?
I don't see a cut to the Pell Grant system. They're just too important. They are raising the interest rates on student loans, but we're talking about Pell Grants right now. A full financial aid qualifier through the Pell system gets about $5,500 a year. I don't see us losing that, but what I would like to propose, and again it goes back to our online question, is I think we do need to stop students from coming to school solely for the purpose of getting a Pell Grant check. I think that's wrong. I think it's hurting our system, and I'll tell you what I would propose. As you guys well know, when you come in as a student into your first semester, if you meet the financial criteria to get a Pell Grant, you're given a grant your first semester. You haven't proved yourself, nothing. And if you flunk out that first semester, there's an appeal process where you don't lose it immediately, and you can conceivably come back and do it again the second semester. What I would propose, and this probably has a long way before anybody ever proves it, but what I would propose to kind of shut down that loophole is when you come in, a lot of people have suggested, let's not give Pell Grant the first semester, let's make them earn it for the second semester. I don't agree with that, because students need to be funded in their very first semester. But what we could do is offer a loan in the very same amount for that first semester. If you do well in that semester, you earn a grant, not a loan, but you earn a grant for your second semester. If you do well in your second semester, you earn a grant for your third semester, and it would be just kind of ongoing until you achieve your academic goals after 5 or 6 semesters. And once you do reach your goal, that very first semester, that loan of half of $5,500, $2,750, that would be converted into a grant, and you wouldn't know a thing. But I think by having that loan in play the entire time, I think it gives students the incentive to do well, and they can't game the system for a semester or two. They can't game the government out of $5,500. I think you crack down on a lot of people that are here just for the financial aid gamesmanship that goes on. So that would be my proposal. But I don't see any immediate reductions to Pell Grant, because they're just too important to students, not only statewide but nationally. So thank you.
So you really don't have an answer for that question?
No.
Okay.
I thought I answered that. We're not doing anything to programs.
Jordan, you gotta get with the speakers. Will that affect this budget? That was the question.
Oh, no, it will not. Pell Grants come from the federal government, so if the federal government cuts Pell Grants, then a lot of our students would not be able to attend here, but it would not free up any money from the state to come to us. The state would still be, you got two different entities, state government, federal government. Pell Grant comes from the feds. Now, I'm not saying that the feds wouldn't benefit. They may have all kinds of things they'd like to do with that money, but the state wouldn't get any more money for our community college system. So I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstood that. So no, it would not help our budget situation.
Those students paying their tuition.
Okay, sorry to cut you off. Brent only has 10 more minutes to be here, so we're going to go ahead and let people who haven't asked questions go ahead and ask so we can get as many through as possible.
My name is JC, and I've been here for a couple of years. And I would just like to say that I have had a really great experience at COS. So I thank you for all the hard work that you guys put in. And we understand you're frustrated too. The only thing I have a question about is with all the class cuts, why have we been building a new campus in Tulare, a new campus in Hanford, and the classes are just sitting empty?
Thank you. That's a great question. It's something that we spent a lot of time on Thursday night talking about. The question was, with the situation the state is in right now, why are we building campuses in Tulare? Certainly Hanford's already been built. And the answer is, if planning for those types of projects takes upwards of 10 years. And the state of California at one time saw the South Tulare County, Tulare, as a place where we really needed to have a college. And we agreed with them, and they said, if you can come up with some matching money through local bonds, we will fund $60 or $80 million to build a new campus there. Obviously, this campus at one time was built for about 4,000 students. At our busiest, again, when some of these plans were really coming to fruition, we had 14,000 students on this campus, and it was a nightmare trying to find a parking space. And we really needed more elbow room. There was money at the state. They were paying to have a new campus built in Tulare, and so we agreed to it. And I don't think we'll regret that 20, 30 years from now. But obviously, right now, it causes a real distraction because even though the state is paying us extra money for that. And by the way, that money the state sends us, or the local bond money that's raised to build construction, that can't be used for summer school. If it could, I think everybody would be doing it at this point because we're all getting hammered on our operational budgets. But when the state passes a statewide facilities bond, like they did in 2008, and when the voters of Tulare pass a local bond, like they did in 2008 with Measure J, that money has to be used for that purpose. Or I guess we could send it back to Sacramento, and they could send it to San Francisco or Los Angeles. Now, obviously, we don't want that to happen. So guess what we're stuck with? What we're stuck with is a beautiful campus that at some point we're desperately going to need, but right now, I think everybody here agrees with you that, man, if we could have just had a crystal ball and known, we probably would have told the state, you know what, don't fund us right now. Wait 5 or 10 years until after this budget bloodletting is over, and then give us the money to build that campus. So as it is, we've got this campus, and we're just trying to make the best out of a situation. And I think one way we're going to make the best out of a situation is to take a lot of the students that have zip codes in and around Tulare. We've got 3,000, 3,500 students with zip codes right around Tulare. That campus is going to be very, very popular with a big part of our student population. And the same goes with Hanford. We've been in Hanford for 20 years. The good folks of Hanford and the good folks of Tulare and the good folks of Woodlake and Exeter, their property taxes have come here for 7, 8 decades, 80 years. And finally, the people in Hanford just decided, you know what, it's our students need something closer. And so they didn't even wait for state money in Hanford. What they did, we were renting a facility there for 20 years. They decided in 2006 to pass Measure C, which would allow them to build a whole new center just for COS, which they did. And we offer about the same amount of classes that we've always offered out there. And I think it's a great campus to be part of. I think Tulare will be a great campus to be part of as well. But the thought is, if we have 3,000 students that eventually migrate to Tulare over the next couple of years, then a proportionate amount of staff and course offerings can leave this campus for Tulare. So basically, we've spread out our offerings, but it's going where the students are. And so you're not going to have the parking problems. You're going to have really a campus that more in line with what it was designed to hold in terms of number of students. But thank you very much.
I just have one follow-up. Is there any way that, as of now, in order to kind of deal with the issues that we're having, to postpone, redirect, or borrow money from those projects with the intent of either paying it back or earning it back later?
No, they won't. They won't let you do that for operational funds. And in fact, in Tulare alone, we were authorized for $60 million in bond construction money, but because of lower assessed values, the way the voting works, it's called the Prop 39 bond measure. The bond can only charge taxpayers, can only cost taxpayers $25 per $100,000 assessed. So when assessed values decrease, as they have been with our real estate tanking, that's limited our ability to fund the entire cost of construction in Tulare. So even if we could do that, we don't have the cash available in that bond because we have $30 million that's been authorized by the taxpayers in Tulare, but it's yet unissued. So we wouldn't have the cash to borrow, but you can't do that anyway. But thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Before asking my question, I wanted to know what the figures are for the administration to faculty ratio, like the higher ups versus our actual educators.
Well, I said earlier, we probably have 28 to 30 administrators. I think we have somewhere around 155 to 160 full-time faculty members. The part-time instructors is a little bit more of a moving target. If Duncan was here, he could probably say it off the top of his head, our Vice President of Instruction, but a significant amount of part-timers as well, probably more so than our full-timers, at least in terms of headcount numbers. And then classified staff, I think we have 160, 170 full-time classified members, and I'm not sure how many part-timers.
Okay.
200 full-time members. And Terry, do you know how many part-time classified?
50? Less than 50?
Less than 50. So, all told, you're talking about a group of 500 or 600 people with 28 administrators, 30 administrators. So I guess rough numbers, and this is kind of putting me on the spot, but I would say 20 personnel to one administrator in terms of all over like that.
All right. My question is, what is the rationale for having more, bringing more people in those higher, like payment brackets, people you have to pay more to be in these front offices doing things that regulate instead of like bringing in more people who actually feed us our education,
sure,
and cutting these jobs and getting rid of people who've worked here for 30
sure,
years and are great educators?
It takes a certain amount of overhead administrators to run an entity this large. If tomorrow we reconvene, same time, same network, and went down to the hospital, I think what we find out is there's a significant number of support staff, administrators at the hospital to run that entity as relative to doctors. It just does. But I also sometimes I think
like there is necessity and there's want, and I think we need to come more to necessity so we can give money to the appropriate areas, Well,
thank you for that. I appreciate your input. I also think sometimes we get mixed up between administrators, high-paying jobs, and just high-paying jobs in general. Because it's more than just, as I said earlier, it's more than just the administrators that are making some pretty significant money on this campus. And I think we're all probably going to have to look at cutting back so that we don't have to quit offering services, because I don't want to pull an administrator out of a very vital program like let's say financial aid or one of those programs I mentioned earlier. That really could hurt students in a different way. But I think what we could look at, and again, this all gets into a collective bargaining issue, which it's not even appropriate for us to be talking in specifics about. But I think because our budget's shrunk, it may be that our personnel need to shrink, but we may not need to lose positions, because when we lose positions, we lose services. But thank you for your questions. we've done a lot of that, and we're continuing to do that. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle, and when we lose one person and we have to fit somebody in somewhere else, there's a lot of that. We have a number of people doing several different jobs.
Okay, I hate to cut you off, but it is 1 o'clock. I know you have to go. Before we go, I'd like everyone to thank Brent Calvin, Francis Guzman, and Doug Berkey for coming and giving out the information we need and taking up their time to come and talk to us. And
I'd like to thank the campus newspaper for all of their hard work and what they do month in, month out, but also in putting together this forum. Not easy to do. I want to thank all of you for your interest and for coming out. Again, I still think, relative to what a lot of other colleges are doing, I think that what we have offered for fall is pretty substantial. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at graduation here in a couple of weeks.
All right, students, the forum is officially closed, but if you guys want to stick around and bounce questions and thoughts and comments off from one another, we still got a long ways to go as far as money and school and classes, and as far as that's concerned, we still have a long ways to go. So like everybody said, it's all about contacting our legislators, our governors, and getting these points across. So if you guys want to stick around and bounce some questions off of each other, maybe go over some ideas and thoughts and pass over some documents, you guys are more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, the campus will be closing up shop here pretty soon.